The Dying Breed Movie Club meets the movies with your host, Phil Congleton. Guest starring Chris Mitch, Jeff Congleton, and Russ Fama. Special commentary by Corey Yoctus and Randy Petrus. Music by Garth Ivan. Additional music by The Subterraneans, featuring Russ Fama, John Sweeney, Jim Bolno, and Joe Bronscheck. Directed and edited by Phil Congleton. Episode 6, The Serious Side of Jerry Lewis, Part 2.
Greetings from the Hedgerow Culbertson Run Clubhouse in Guthriesville, Pennsylvania. My name is Phil Congleton. First, let me introduce my guests. He is the guy who inspired us to do this kind of audio podcast format, thanks to his own ingenious audio blog series entitled Digging Star Wars, not to mention an accomplished writer, producer, director, Mr. Chris Mitch.
Wow. Woo! Thank you, Phil. Very kind of you.
She is an excellent photographer and is well versed in the TV production world, and she is someone near and dear to my heart, my little sister, Jennifer Jeff Congleton. He is a veteran contributor to the television production industry and a huge Jerry Lewis fan, Mr. Russ Fama.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So how is everybody doing?
Great.
Excellent.
And later on in the podcast, we will revisit our episode 4 Avengers podcast and talk a little bit about The Dark Knight in honor of the release of The Dark Knight Rises in theaters July 20th, 2012. And we will make some predictions on where Marvel takes the Avengers next. And now, part 2 of The Serious Side of Jerry Lewis.
I was reminded how much John Ritter was influenced by.
Wow, that's a great
know,
point.
The Rocket.
Yeah. From Three's Company.
There's an episode of Three's Company where Jack has to take Janet to a party, and it's on an island, and they have to ride on a single-engine plane, and Jack hates to fly. So he takes tranquilizers, gets to the party, and he's a little goofy, and this guy makes him a drink, and it's called the Rocket, and he takes the drink, and then just all hell breaks loose, and it's hilarious. It's the best episode ever.
It's 7 minute long that he's dancing. It's Jerry Lewis. Is what it is.
Yeah, that's
it's
a great
brilliant.
point. And that's probably, and it's funny, I'm not a huge Three's Company fan, but recently I've gotten back into it because on one of the cable channels they're running, which was
TV Land or one of those, yeah.
And I just started to get into it. But then Don Knotts is in it. I'm like, whoa, I forgot Don Knotts. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of that slapstick. Mm-hmm. The blonde. You got the blonde. You got the guy who wants the blonde, but he's always getting into trouble. And then you got the Don Knotts characters, that in-betweener, the comedic in-betweener. So,
and it's that humor where someone's in the bedroom, then there's a lot of doors opening and closing. It's all misunderstanding. And
right. Yeah.
Again, the misunderstood.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to tie it in like a broken record.
Jerry, I just want to ask you, if you listen to my stuff for 15 minutes, that's all. Is that asking too much?
Yes, it is. I have a life, okay?
Well, I have a life, too.
That's not my responsibility.
Well, it is when you tell me to call you and then you don't...
I told you to call to get rid of you.
To get rid of me?
That's right.
Okay. All right, I can take a hit.
If I didn't tell you that, we'd still be standing on the steps at my apartment.
Yeah, all right, so I made a mistake.
So did Hitler.
We come to 1983, and Martin Scorsese directs a movie called The King of Comedy. And Jerry plays like a Johnny Carson show host type of person who is loved and admired by everyone. And Robert DeNiro plays... That's the part that's unclear for me. Is he a comedian? Or is he a crazy guy who thinks he can be
I think he... I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think he is... he thinks he can be a comedian. He's one of those... broken dreams that you hear about in the entertainment industry. There's people that really want something, but they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a role reversal of the first movie that we saw, Delicate Delinquent. I bet to say at the end of that movie, he doesn't really make it as a cop. Mm-hmm. Just like I think the De Niro character can't make it as a comedian, but they come so close. Again, perception is perception reality. They devote their whole life into creating that perception, but if you take Rupert Pupkin, you take him in another decade or another era, Chris, maybe he would have been a successful comedian. You see what I'm saying? Like, see, there's that whole thing. Just like in another era, the delicate delinquent, he could be a cop. Because in this town, we have a shortage of cops. So, like, there is that whole anything can happen type of thing in the Jerry Lewis film. And I think this one is definitely Jerry taking on the Dean role. Yeah. The role reversal. It's all about role reversal.
What takes us into the serious side, I mean, it's actually a serious movie with some sprinkled in comedy. But it's, De Niro gets so obsessed with Jerry's character and wanting to be like Jerry that he hatches a plan to kidnap him so that he can get on the show, and craziness ensues. Sandra Bernhardt is in the film, who does, I think, an amazing job of being a crazy chick who aids Robert De Niro's character into doing the kidnapping and all that. And he eventually gets some time on Jerry's show while Jerry is tied up in his apartment.
I think you need to also point out, like, I'm not a huge Sandra Bernhardt fan. She's amazing in this.
Yeah, this
like
is
she
classic.
like when you see this, like, I get why she was who she was back in the day. You know,
I mean, that's really her. I mean, she is insane.
And then it touches, the whole movie touches on that whole. You're gonna love me, damn it, even if I have to kill you. It's like there's that whole psycho, serious part of it, like that, like it's like playing Misty for me or something, like the stalker. You know, it's like the stalker, and it's like.
And I remember I remember reading about how Johnny Carson would talk about these kind of things.
Right.
You know, the crazed
Any
fans,
celebrity
being afraid, and when this movie came out, he was kind of flipped out.
Yeah, he said he refused to walk down the street in public after seeing this movie.
Oh, wow.
Years. It affected him that much. He was like, "That's it. I'm going from the studio door to my limo, and I'm getting the hell
I think
out."
it's interesting because, like, I think you anticipate something like really bad happening with, like, Robert De Niro, like, killing him or something, and they kidnap him.
But it's bound to happen. It could happen.
He's kind of like a happy-go-lucky stalker. I mean, he's like...
Yeah, but I think he could.
You know what
I think he
mean?
could break at any minute.
Yeah, but he doesn't do anything that
But I
bad.
think at any minute, or it could be an accident. I was waiting. The first time I saw it, you know, would Jerry's character die as an accident? You know, almost like a bumbling version. You know, but I think he's such an unstable character that he could just snap.
And Jerry does an amazing job. It's like we said earlier, he has this look on his face throughout the movie, like, I hate my life.
He doesn't smile once, except like in Robert De Niro's like
the hallucination
daydreams
type
about
thing,
him. Then he's like relaxed.
The whole money can't buy happiness thing.
Well, I like too, like when you're saying that, because we got to roll now off the side here. There's a great shot where he's walking down the street, and the guy in a taxi cab's talking to him, and it's a great shot following them, and he does smile in that, but it's definitely a played for smile, and I think that's very telling. Like, just like he's constantly, like, he's tired of being on all the time, which is funny because, like, when you read the biographies of the real Jerry Lewis, he sort of is on all the time. Like, it's intense being him, you know.
He said going unnoticed was not my strong suit. I read.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
like,
absolutely.
so in his real life, and you know.
Again, I'm going to repeat the whole humiliation and the embarrassment and the pain and suffering again when he's kidnapped. I mean, it's a hilarious scene as it develops, yet it's painful for the character. He's duct taped, and I mean, he could die. I mean, but again, it's that comedy out of pain.
You could feel the pain too when she's ripping the tape off of him and stuff like that.
But it's.
But then he gives us some Jerry flash too, because there's the scene where the car is following him and he starts running down the street, and he's doing that thing where he does open the lid and let you peek through, even with some of the facial expressions.
And I thought needed that in this movie, though.
And I thought it was cool that Martin Scorsese was cool with that.
Yeah.
He's like, oh no, you're looking too Jerry, you know. But no, it helps with the character.
That one daydream that Rupert Pupkin has, when
when he's
strangles
strangling
him?
him.
That
I
is
love
so-
that.
that
It
is-
is so funny where he's strangling Robert
funny
De
and
Niro.
bizarre, and
Yeah.
like I'm not quite sure what it means. It means something.
That may have been some kind of a explanation of Jerry can either save him or kill him. You know, so I think
Yeah,
that's
who's
what-
going to kill who? Both of them were capable of killing each other. When you think about it, in the end, any of them, if you rewrote this movie, you could have either one of the characters easily killing off each other.
Jerry was just as volatile in this film as Robert De Niro was.
Both being pushed to the brink.
And I also thought it was very interesting that this was the film that Jerry decided to use for his semi-autobiographical novel. You know, I mean, I think it's appropriate. And I think with Jerry's ego,
Well, it's a great byline.
it's a great, yeah, and with Jerry's ego, it's like he would like to think himself the king of comedy. And the thing I really liked about this picture is, like, again, this is a must-see in the Jerry canon. Not for starters, but like once you kind of get down the line. And to your point with the black and whiteness of it, like the haves and the have-nots and whatnot. When I was just watching it again today, one thing that struck me was when De Niro's character goes to, I guess it's the studio in New York, where he thinks he's going to meet Jerry's character. The receptionist desk is in this sort of curved, enclosed silo with this circular window. It's sort of 2001-ish looking. But when I saw it and the way it was shot, and she's lit, like her workspace is lit and casting light out, it reminded me of Hopper's Nighthawks, the Boulevard of Broken Dreams,
Right,
where like
right.
there's these people in this enclosed casing, and you can tell that like their dreams have been dashed and they've been crushed, and that is certainly the overriding theme. And that just goes to Scorsese just brilliantly thinking like how can I say this with an image, as in addition to what's going on the page, and like. Just watching that one scene, him sitting there pathetic in that chair and thinking he has that meeting and it's going to happen and all that stuff, like that's perfect for what's trying to be communicated throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is when a scene can encapsulate an entire movie without giving the rest of the movie away, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And getting so close, like the character can taste like so close, and then in his imagination he's even closer than close. So, but like even in reality, he gets physically close.
Right.
Again, and that's I think the frustration of the dark side of comedy, that it's so faceted, that there's luck, there's talent, it's all those things, and you miss one variable, you're out.
Yeah.
And this guy can't face that fact. But in essence, he does maintain what every performer needs, that stubborn insistence that you are the best. So it's that egocentricity that Jerry as a real comedian had, but Rupert actually has that component. But unfortunately, it's too much of that and too little of the funny stuff. So again, it's all about what is in that chemistry, you know. Classic.
What did you guys think of his set? Like when he finally does his set?
Oh, was it funny?
Rupert.
You mean the act that he does? I don't remember too much. Again, I'm still kind of watching it, but I remember, you know, to Russ's point, like this could be a comedy act in any club, anywhere.
Yeah.
I've heard worse.
Right.
You know?
Right, like,
Yeah.
it
So
really
again, he's
wasn't that great,
close. He's
but,
not like
it could have been
totally bombing, but I mean, again, he's close enough for his own fantasy.
And the audience is unaware of what's going on, and they're laughing their ass off.
Yeah.
So it's obviously working for them.
Right,
you know, so
right.
it
I mean,
sells
come on,
it.
you turn on.
I don't know if I was
turn on-
laughing hard or anything.
Yeah, no, he's really not
I actually
that great,
think-
but
Think about you turn on any of these
he's
comedy
almost there.
shows
But
that
you know
are
what?
on
It-
a dime a dozen.
Not
and
to
that's
jump
it.
ahead, but that's kind of like what's going on with Vincent Gallo in Arizona Dream.
Yeah.
Like when he does his acting bit, like you're like it is funny, and it is great, and it is sad, and it's terrible all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, oh, it's and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, very uncomfortable.
The girl, like that works in the bar, that whole thing was.
Oh,
interesting.
De Niro's girlfriend
Yeah,
or whatever.
He
Yeah.
takes her out to Jerry's vacation house.
Yeah, that was
Right.
that was a creepy scene.
That
actually.
was
That
creepy.
was-
Yeah.
and that's some more serious stuff coming in where Jerry's like, I'm gonna fucking kick your ass if you don't get out of my
Yeah.
house, you know.
And it's funny too because in that scene,
That is really uncomfortable.
it's very
to say,
uncomfortable,
like-
and again, it's like classic Jerry. They got him in the tennis outfit.
Oh, yeah.
And the
I know
racket.
that is so his costume.
And I'm gonna
and when
say
you
that-
see that, like, it instantly transports you back to like this repeating character that he did. And I remember, like, first time I watched this, being like, "Oh, that's so cool that he's in that outfit."
And
He's
it's
like-
the white socks.
Yes.
Jerry's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
white socks.
Yeah.
It's very
The
uncomfortable.
whole thing is uncomfortable.
I felt myself
And it
doing
can
like
happen.
this.
Yeah.
And it
because I
can
was
so
like,
easily happen. And so you wonder why some celebrities fortress themselves, you know, behind the walls and levels of security.
Yeah.
Because look what can happen.
I'm not too celebrity gaga, but like whenever I have to go out to LA and I come back, the first thing people ask me is, "Did you see any celebrities? like were you in the urinal next to you? Was this actor or you know like?" And I was like, I'm not that type of person, but I think our general populace, for the most part, they want to hear stories like that. They
Yeah,
want to hear, like, you went to a restaurant and across the street, you know, across several tables was this musician or this famous actor or actress or whatever.
And you know what's funny? You could actually come back and totally lie, and everybody will believe you.
Yeah.
Because they want to believe.
I can't stand when people say that too. It's like you're going to Rocky Mountain State Park and they're like, "Did you see any elk?" I'm like, like they're out running around in herds in LA.
Yeah, there was a book signing when you go in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, I didn't see anybody.
Okay, I'm going to give it a solid A.
Okay.
Solid.
I'll give it a solid A as well.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's across the board, and I'm not a huge I love Scorsese. I think he's extremely talented, but he's not like my filmmaker of choice. But I'm so glad he made this movie, and I think he was definitely the right person to make this movie.
Yeah,
and he performances across the board. Jerry Lewis, Robert De Niro, and Sandra, it's just awesome. Not to belabor this, but like TV on film doesn't always work. When you talk about the TV world a lot, especially back in that day and age.
On network, it did.
Yeah, like
Sure.
but like it's kind of like, well, no, we're film and TV's over here. This isn't something. Our subject matter is different, and TV kind of like was lagging behind. But yeah, I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
He made that work.
Yeah,
totally.
I probably will settle with an A-. But that's the grade I'm going to give it because it's just fantastic. And Martin Scorsese's forte is imagery and editing and things like that. It's stand-up film.
I guess you heard about the wedding.
I did. Congratulations, Leo.
Thank you. I'd be especially proud if you would be my best man.
I wish I could. I've got to get back to New York tonight, though.
Sure. Larry, we have to make Axel an appointment tomorrow for a fitting.
Honestly, Leo, I've got to go.
Yeah, I know. It's so good to see Axel.
You too.
You look terrific. I just want to show you something. I want to share this with you. What do you think about my saguaro?
The cactus.
So we jump another 10 years to 1993, and Johnny Depp, still fairly new to the world, comes in and does this movie called Arizona Dream, directed by Amir Kusturica.
Sure.
Johnny starts in New York, and basically he gets kidnapped by his other cousin.
Yeah, they never really explained the relationship. I'm like, is it a cousin?
I think they were cousins.
I couldn't
See,
tell
I
if
thought
it
they
was
were
just
friends. Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
that's
part of
true.
the course for this movie. There's a lot of reading between the lines.
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
movie.
So he gets brought to Arizona because Jerry's getting married to his 20-something-year-old new wife to be, and Jerry wants Johnny Depp's character to be best man. So,
but he also wants him to take over the Cadillac business.
But then there's a very visible kind of abstract symbolism going on throughout the movie. The beginning of the movie actually starts out with Eskimos and some guy getting lost in a storm and possibly some of the dogs dying and things like that. And then there's also this thing about cows and the moon and getting to the moon and all
flying
this
machines and
So,
so in other words, if you're someone who enjoys chemical enhancements,
yeah.
this might be the film for you.
Yeah. It's very, very, very abstract. A very abstract film.
Well, not
You have this
very.
normal story going on, and then all this weird shit keeps happening in between. It's kind of hard to explain the plot because Faye Dunaway and Lily Taylor get involved, and they're like friends.
See, I actually thought they were the majority of the story.
Yeah. It's basically a movie about crazy people, if you ask me.
But
so.
Jerry's part in it, I really like him in it. Like,
Yes.
I totally get why Jerry Lewis did this film. Like this, like to me, like he was able to...
Can you explain it to me, please? 'Cause
His-
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, because I know you really liked the film. I didn't particularly care for the film.
I
but
didn't
had
love
fun.
it. It's not my favorite movie,
Sure,
but
no,
I was
yeah.
surprised that it was
Right.
and no one knew it.
I think at this point in his life, you know, he was definitely dealing with mortality issues and whatnot. Also, the overriding theme through this is like, what is the age appropriateness of sexual partners? You know, and you know, Johnny Depp's character is supposed to, you think, is going to hook up with what's her name?
Faye Dunaway.
No,
Lily Taylor.
Lily Taylor. Thank you. But he hooks up with Faye Dunaway.
Yeah.
And here, Jerry Lewis' character, Uncle Leo, is engaged to whatever, a 23-year-old Russian
25
bride or whatever.
Yeah.
And he comes over and starts lecturing Faye Dunaway how
Yeah.
an old car should be next to a new car and everything else.
Very hypocritical.
Yeah, and the thing about Jerry Lewis...
Very used car salesman.
Yeah, is that according to, you know, the one book we keep repeating about his semi-autobiography, King Comedy, he lost his virginity at a very young age to either a showgirl / prostitute backstage. And he talked a lot about how, like, his dad was on the circuit, he was kind of left unsupervised, he was in dressing rooms a lot, and, you know, this woman came to him and said, I'm going to show you something that's going to change your world, and hence he lost his virginity. I think with all Jerry Lewis stories that he tells himself about his life, you got to kind of sift through to find the truth. What's an exaggeration? What's a great story? What's actually happened?
What's crazy and what's not crazy.
Right. And to that point, when that came out, when you get to his house in this movie and you meet this young girl and him, I thought, this is exactly why he wanted to do this movie, because this is a subject matter of interest to him, as part of him. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things are touched upon in this movie. You know, broken dreams again, and failure, the awkwardness of performing, what is deemed acceptable by a certain crowd. Like when they're at that talent show and the girl before Vince Gallo, like singing and doing the robotic thing, amazing, you know, amazing, but very bizarre. And this film, as I was watching it, I felt like this is independent film as we know it now, and it's in its early stages, in its infancy, where, you know, they did a lot of things just to be wacky. It reminded me a little bit of David Byrne's True Stories. If you've seen that, like, it's just kind of like, you know, oh, we're gonna have a parade of lawnmowers. Why? Well, that's what we do. We have a parade of lawnmowers. You know, and so there were a lot of things like that, and it just had that kind of play-like quality to it. And I think Jerry, this was his way of saying, you know, I can delve into something deeper. And you know, big spoiler here, but at the end of the film, Johnny Depp keeps having these dreams, talks about these dreams about these Eskimos and this fish, and Johnny Depp and Jerry Lewis are cast as roles in the Eskimos, and Jerry's speaking in that language.
And Jerry does his thing.
He's speaking in like with Jerry's history of performing various characters. Like, is this legit language? Is this gibberish? Is it the real thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in this movie because it's a dream, and dreams don't have to follow any rules of logic. So,
and Johnny Depp's doing the same thing. He's doing the Eskimo.
Yeah, and I really like that aspect of the film. I like the fact that it kind of was ugly and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. So I guess the end is trying to say that dreams and reality eventually comes together.
Well, I mean, I'm really curious what Jeff thinks, but like, my thing I walked away with from this film was life is a dream. Like, it's passing, and instead of analyzing it or like building up other dreams, you need to focus on what is around you now, whether it makes sense or not.
You can get lost in, because like he thinks he doesn't want to be there and stuff, but then he just like dives into this world with these like crazy chicks and like, you know, it's like he's just living in that moment.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I thought there was definitely a lot trying to be said, and I don't feel it was very well communicated. I'm not saying that they probably had very good intentions in making bold statements in this movie, but I think it kind of got lost in the surrealness of it all.
Yeah. I think that's what was killing it. Because I got lost at some point. Like, I mean, the part that seemed real to me, I got. But all the imagery that was coming in, I was trying to figure out why.
It's one of those suspend disbelief things, or just like
Do you
symbolism
just like Eskimos, or
that could mean something to one person.
But is it the opposite again? Arizona hot, Eskimo cold.
That's another
is it just
thing I was
another
thinking.
Black
It's
and white opposite throw in, like almost just for.
Well, they
glue?
do say something about that, where the sand in Arizona is kind of like the snow and.
Well, what's the repeating image in this movie?
The fish.
The fish flying. The fish out of water. And that's what this film's about. It's about all these characters out of their element, struggling. And the whole fascination Faye Dunaway has with flying, in dreams, flying is a sexual representation.
That's true.
So it's
but there's
I
also
just learned that today.
yeah, there you go.
there's also
Thanks,
this.
Chris.
There's also this.
It's going to be a great night tonight.
There's also this representation that the moon is heaven too. The
Right.
moon-
Talk about that.
Well, someone dies, and in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, it takes off and flies to the moon. And I'm trying to figure out if that was Johnny Depp's dream, or was it
goes
Jerry's
back to the thing in
dream?
the beginning when he talks about his father who wanted to stack the cars all the way up to the moon so he could walk up.
Right.
So that's why in that one scene the cars are
And
on
then
the
that
and
became
Jerry's
his
hitting on
dream,
with
I
the
guess.
broom and all
See, it's funny
that.
because I took that, I forgot you mentioned that stacking.
And there's another
Yeah.
door,
That's
by the way.
cool. But
Car door.
I also think
No, there's
that
this door floating in this one scene
Ah.
with that guy behind it.
I took the ambulance flying up to the moon as obviously, a poetic way of saying he's going up to heaven, but I also took the fact that Johnny Depp's now not torn between, not that he was very, very much torn between Uncle Leo's world and Faye Dunaway's character, but it was the two worlds combined because he's in a flying car. Like Faye Dunaway's all about flying and flying machines, and the ambulance is a lot like a Cadillac. It's very tricked out and ornate and everything else, so it's really two worlds combined. And I thought was interesting, and this is why this film does have merit, as much as I didn't think it made a lot of sense, is there's a lot of double images. When he goes into the ambulance and they close the door, if you notice, Uncle Leo's bride is separated with one car door window, and Vincent Gallo character is another, but they hold on the shot so that when the ambulance pulls away, they're thrust into the same
I know
frame.
what you're talking about, yeah.
And then later, before Lily Tyler's big thing, she is seen in a mirror, one image, and then they cut back. There's some other stuff going on. They come back to her, and then it's two mirrors repeating the same image. So she's sort of split. Like she was one person, but now she's split, and that of course leads to one character. So it's fake, but so there's a lot, and there's a lot of looking through windows, looking in mirrors. Faye Dunaway's playing with that distorted mirror. In the bedroom talking to Johnny Depp. There's a lot of things like this is what we see, and this is what someone else sees, and it's very distorted, and it kind of goes with the whole thing. Like dreams are distorted.
I thought that a lot of the narration was good. Like it was well written. Like when they're watching the home movies. Like I thought, going into it, oh, this is gonna be dumb, or but it actually was really good. And he says his Uncle Leo is the last guy that smelled a cheap cologne and believed in the American dream.
I love the home movie scene.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, those are
the
good.
scene where Johnny Depp's waking up when Vincent Gallo's driving him down the road and it's slow motion. It's the first time you see Jerry. With the cars up on the.
And he's dusting the desert.
Yeah,
sweeping the
Yes.
desert.
Yes.
It's great image.
That's one of the better.
And this music box music is playing. The music is really awesome.
All right, I'm gonna say a B-. I respect the imagery and all the weirdness going on, and I just thought some of it dragged a little bit. I do kind of feel like Jerry was a little bit wasted in this film, but
you saw it, right?
Yeah.
You gotta admit, when he went to Dunaway's house and she pulls the rifle and he does the run back to the car, that was classic Jerry.
Pure Jerry.
That was classic Jerry, and that was funny.
Oh, that was definitely funny.
I understand what that means. And he
There was a funny scene where there was a guy in his lot, giving.
Oh, the guy who didn't have the right vibes off the car.
Yeah.
The hippie or whatever.
When he it's funny. I give it a B-. I guess.
Yeah, I give it a C, and I think it was interesting for what it was, but I would not encourage someone to watch because I don't want them coming back to me and saying, I can't believe you recommended this film.
Well, I would say it's worth watching as a piece for Jerry, just to see.
It took me 4 or 5 viewings to get through this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't imagine sitting in a movie theater for 2 hours watching.
I would, yeah. But I mean, watching it at home, I mean, you can get through it. I mean, it's.
I'll say this: if you're a big Johnny Depp fan, this fits right within his canon of stuff.
And here is Chris's promo for his Digging Star Wars audio blog podcast.
Digging Star Wars, the online journal of the films that inspired George Lucas to create the Star Wars saga. Please look for our next episode on diggingstarwars.blogspot.com. With that in mind, think, post, and accept my thanks for listening.
Hello, Tommy. You were great. They were bastards, and they come to laugh or being bombed. Your mom thinks you went to Hawaii. I think you're with that snake woman in Malibu. Am I right? Listen, don't feel you have to tell us where you are.
I feel I should tell you where I am.
You don't have to tell us where you are.
I want to tell you where I am.
Okay, where are you?
So we moved just 2 years ahead to 1995. A director named Peter Chelsom did a movie called Funny Bones. There's like 2 stories going on in this. There's a one story about Oliver Platt, who is another struggling comedian trying to make it big, and his father is Jerry Lewis. And there's a second story going on about smuggling of artifact or
Well, it's an essence that makes you immortal.
yeah, it's
an
that's the belief. That's Oliver Reed.
Yes.
He's trying to get the final egg because they were able to get 5 of the 6 eggs, and then the one egg disappeared. But that's the second part of the story. There's these people involved with this are also like comedians and entertainers, and it turns out that Jerry is the father of Oliver Platt and this other guy.
Oh, the mistress.
Yeah, with the mistress.
Right.
Lee Evans plays Jack Parker, who is the half brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention there's definitely a scary kind of violent side to him.
Well, England.
And these worlds
He
begin.
escaped one world and created another world for himself that the son didn't know about until he thought he was escaping and found out. Another interesting reversal.
It's another weird movie
It's
with
a really
these.
weird plot.
Yeah, it's this whole thing with the artifact and the immortality and Oliver Reed, and then this other stuff going on with the comedy, where Oliver Platt is trying to, make himself the greatest comedian of all time because he wants to be as good as his father was, who was apparently a legend, played by Jerry Lewis. And these worlds begin to come together and meld together, and
Well, to me, the whole movie, it's all about art is theft, and therefore comedy is theft, and stealing it piece by piece and putting it back together. And I knew it was going to go in some direction like that with the severed foot and the severed feet, I should say, and things being severed, things being spliced. It's all about editing, timing, comedy, film, editing, timing, severed, splicing, editing. And throughout, at the beginning, I said, this is starting to be really disjointed. But it was intentionally disjointed because that's how life and art is. And then you, as the artist, have to make sense of it by putting it together by some means, whether it be editing or getting the severed feet back or the missing essence back. And on as serious as that is, I thought there was a comedy. Again, the art is pain. Comedy's pain. In Death, there's comedy. Within Death, there's comedy. Just the floating foot, there was something.
Yeah, but I think with that to go, you're saying like pain is comedy. I also think you got to dial it back a little bit to the opening introduction of Oliver Platt's character, where he goes out and does his bit in Vegas, and his one writer is like, you know, don't do this cheap joke, everything else. And I think a lot of this film is what is funny and what is not funny.
What can you get away with?
No, well, that, but just what's not funny. And that's the whole point of the audition sequence when they're over at whatever town they're in.
England.
Like him sitting at the table with a lawyer, you know, like someone who doesn't know what funny should.
Trying to analytically decide what's funny.
And you're like, yeah, that's funny.
Not.
We'll take it. That's not funny. That is funny. That's not funny. And I felt that was a lot. Like, there's other themes, obviously, with this movie. But right from the get-go, when he crashes and burns in Vegas, you know, it's the what is funny, what's not funny. And I thought it was another Jerry Lewis thing. I saw why he was, you know, gravitated to the script, because Jerry Lewis had a lot of issues with his dad. Trying to please his dad, trying to prove to his dad that he's made it. The fact that Oliver Platt's already sweating it in his dressing room, and then Jerry goes up, and he should have just done the wave and let his son have the moment, but he takes the mic.
Please don't do it. Please don't do it.
Yeah, and he does that joke about, you know, like, what jokes like a woman come out of the car, you see it so much, you know. And, you know, that is definitely why I think Jerry Lewis not only agreed with this, but probably ran this film. It was like, oh, I can finally tap into his father angst.
He's not not in it a ton, but
it deals with father
so much. Like,
a lot of the movie has to deal with.
And then
father.
again, that's severed relationships. Well, the undercurrent in the dressing room, I thought he was going to kill himself. He said, "This is it. I have so many days, and that's it." I didn't know he was going to leave and go to England. I thought he was just going to commit suicide. And to me, it started out very suicidal. That after the Vegas show, and then when the son said, "That's it, I have this many days," and I thought he was going to off himself, and that's why when he went missing.
Well, that's the whole talk about the edge. I'm going to go to the edge.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to go to the edge, and I'm going to be
committing
there.
Suicide.
Yeah, I'm going to go. Yeah. And, well, that's what you're thinking. Like everyone's thinking at the beginning of the movie. When you get to that end scene, and he's doing that act where he could at any point one misstep and he is dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's bordering on, is this really a chase? Is he really in peril? Is it a bit? Is it an act? Is he going to die?
Yeah.
Is he going to kill other people? Are other people going to be like? And you're going through that gamut of emotions watching that scene, and you're like, this is too intense. And that's exactly what he was talking about at the beginning of the movie.
Again,
this is the edge.
Yeah, and another it takes an unstable character or personality to pull that off. So you get, again, what is comedy? There's a lot of instability, a lot of suffering that goes in that, and there was a lot of violence, and even throughout, the whole thing with the pipe.
Yeah.
I mean,
that is freaky.
There is, and so that's a major.
But see, that's the thing. If that was in a different movie, that would be considered funny.
Right.
Again, that's
funny
the point.
Is timing and where it's placed.
Like that, obviously a dark comedy, but look, this is funny. He's going to accidentally get killed by this pipe.
Right.
But because this film oscillates between all these different genres and feelings and moods, I was genuinely concerned for that guy. I was like, oh my! If this guy gets killed rehearsing this scene, this movie's going to suck. Like, I'm going to be so angry at this movie, and it played it perfectly.
And I think it's all about making of film, making of art, about severing, editing, putting it back together to make a connected body again. You take disconnected body of talent or art and connect it together to make a better piece of art. To me, it was like so far-reaching.
Right. Well, and there's a saying I heard in art school back in the day, and all heard is like, out of context, it sounds horrible. This is the saying was, "Don't be afraid to kill your children." And in art school, what they meant is like, if you're developing, a drawing, a film, or a sculpture,
nothing sacred.
You get locked in and almost in love with it. You've created it; it's yours. But if you lock yourself into that, you're denying the work of art its true potential. So you have to be able to kill it. You have to be able to say, like, this is what I want to do, or I want to change this.
Deconstructive.
Yeah.
Pathos spragma.
Yeah. So
ancient Greek drama.
Or your basic reboot.
Yeah.
Start over.
Yeah, start over.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, this had very graphic, physical representations of that concept.
Build it up, rip it down. Again, another standout, which I could watch over and over again, is when the sound parts where he mimics the radio.
Oh,
and
yeah,
again,
that was really good.
splicing
Oh
all
my
these
gosh, that was
sounds
brilliant.
together.
Yeah, that was
blew
pretty
me
wild.
away. Like again, not only visually editing, that was audible editing. So that's
Right.
a whole nother form of comedic and dramatic structure and deconstruction. So like that just on so many levels, just that one.
Yeah,
if
that
you
was
just saw
an
that one
important
scene,
scene.
it'd be worth the price of
I'm
admission.
curious if Jerry did a bit like that back in the day. Because when
I
I was
wonder.
watching that scene, I'm like, that is a very
Actually,
Jerry Lewis act.
the first thing that came to my mind was very Harpo-esque.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah. There's a little bit of Andy Kaufman in there too, like in that whole
Yeah.
here I come to save the day when he used to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
that
absolutely.
whole-
And talk about someone who like wasn't afraid to be not funny to be funny.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
like-
funny going back to Rupert Pupkin. There was again a little bit of Andy Kaufman-esque
Yes.
in there
Yes,
and in this
very.
movie. That misfit, or where is he going to bomb? Is he going to totally die? Is he for real? Is he not for real? Am I watching truth or fiction? I think that was again balancing the edge, like
Yes.
you said, taking it to the edge. It hit it spot on. But again, about reinvention. Everybody's reinventing, and that's what art is, and the evolution of comedy, which was great when you saw the different players do it. Like what was really clever is that Jerry Lewis' character stole that stuff, but then at the same time watching the originators do it almost was two different versions of it. So yes, comedy can be funny in different, even though different people do it, but who's the best?
Well, and it also played in a lot the whole art and the purity of it versus the commerce of it. You know, like Jerry took the act and he went and made money. Those guys are just naturally funny. And again, with the whole like, is it funny? Is it not funny? Are they funny? Not like their job where they're in the haunted, ride that goes through the tunnel was very funny. Like they're right in the middle of a conversation, they have to run away,
The bell
go into the haunted
That was
house.
Keystone Cops right there.
Yeah.
That was
And
Silent
cops are
Film,
chasing him, which I thought was
that
pretty
was
cool.
Yeah.
Keystone Cops
And
right
how
there.
freaky and scary it was, and then they come back out and
And the dog's name is Toast.
yeah, Toast, and them living under the roller coaster was like Annie Hall. It's just kind of like there's a lot of comedy references. And this kind of goes with your editing thing. I liked how they used the 8mm film effect to tell the backstory of Oliver Platt.
Oh, yeah,
but he
the whole movie. It was
But
like a
he
whole
didn't
movie.
remember everything, and they also slowly revealed things. And I loved how when he talked about the past, outside them showing the 8mm flashbacks of his childhood, he would say something to the effect of like, and it was always sunny. And we were happy, and we were always happy.
And they
Yeah.
they also drop hints.
Sunshine
on
and
misters.
golden shining people.
Yeah.
I love that line.
And then when
it
you
was
see
all sunshine and golden shining
Right.
people.
And then when you see the reveal that his father was having an affair and whatever, and how it wasn't perfect, but that's the thing about film is even home movies. When you shoot home movies, you want it to look perfect. Your whole point of filming something is to capture everything's good now, and in the future you want to look back and remember this was a good time.
You sanctified it. But
Yeah.
did you notice during that home movie sequence, the way that the person taking the home movie, they show his current wife at the time, and then they pan over and show him with his mistress on his lap.
That's
But
what
then,
I'm saying, like
but then by the time the wife comes into the shot, she's right off
gone.
his lap.
Because the memory's
and
been
so
altered.
She even
Yeah.
that was brilliant.
I also liked about this movie the whole deconstructing thing you were saying is Oliver Platt goes to buy the act from these people, and they do the little run through, and he's like, enough. You're thinking he's tearing them down, thinking that they stole the bit from Jerry.
Right.
But then when they leave the room, you realize he's upset because he realized Jerry stole the bit from them.
That was well written.
And I was like, that was really cool.
Another thing that was great is how artists disguise their arsenal of talent. Like they'll just show you maybe what you think you want, but they're going to save the really good stuff. Like they touched on that, and like how like what you can have this, but you can't have that. Like there's that whole within the artist's repertoire, the pecking order of what's the best bit, what's not.
Yeah.
What I'll say this, I'll give them that, but I'm going to hold on to this. There's that again that coveting of your own children.
Right.
It touches on that. Another thing I just want to switch gears that this reminded me of about some of Jerry's films, the timelessness of it. Do you really know what time period this was? Was it the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s? Was it now?
No, I know.
I don't know what it was, and it didn't matter.
I got the feeling it was 1995.
I took it as...
I thought it was the 20s.
No, I think to your point, Phil, like I think it was whatever current time was when the film came out, but when he goes back home, he is stepping back in time. Like, yes, it's that time.
Well, you don't even really know what time it was. That's what really was fascinating, that it was so successful.
Current day, but then, like, later I was like, wait a minute, is this
and the
like
characters were so offbeat that it really could be any time. And that's what I loved about this movie.
When he drives into town for the first time and he's, like, seeing the people in slow motion and everything, like...
It looked very 50s.
Yeah,
I thought they...
And he showed up in a zoot suit when he got out.
Yeah, right, and that's what I was thinking. Is this the 40s?
But I think it was him trying to get back to that era.
The golden, shiny era. And I love the line. My favorite line is, why do all the best things in life belong to the past?
Yeah.
But that's only our perception of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm going to circle back to the thing you're talking about with, like, who owns what in that act. Well, what's great is that, like, the fact that, like, he gets upset because he realizes his dad stole the act. We don't know that right away. But I think it's very telling that in the opening scene in Vegas, you see Oliver Platt talking to his writer in his dressing room. Oliver did not come up with those jokes. His writer did. Mm-hmm. And his writer is scared to death that he's going to go off course and try to do some other material. And there was a writer telling him, like, don't say the sheep joke. Don't. I know, and basically saying to Oliver Platt, don't tell your joke.
Right.
Tell my jokes.
Don't break from the script.
Right. And Jerry Lewis even says, to him, like, I hire you the best writers to write you the funniest jokes. Why can't you be funny? Mm-hmm. I'm doing all the work for you, stupid. All you got to do is go out there and just regurgitate what you've been told to do.
Like it's rebuilding a car.
Which is a very father-son thing. Like, do what I'm telling you to do, and then everything will be fine.
Again, the commercialism, what is art just rebuilding a car by following a manual? No. But it can be to some people. So it was comedy by manual. It was comedy. Read the manual. Here's the manual. Here's the cookbook for when you do this circuit.
And it's not one show. Funny? It's 2 to 3 shows a day, and 3 shows on Saturday. And you're saying the same material over and over.
That's
and over
not. Again, it's subjective, but that's not real art. That's not real comedy. It's homogenized. It's pasteurized. Right. But it makes money, or it gives people a living, or it gives them the right to say, well, yeah, I'm a comedian just like my dad, but he really wasn't.
Well, there's definitely an art to it, because you have to do something that works with a variety of audiences.
I'm going to rate it A+ because this.
Holy cow!
This talked to me.
It sounds like he really likes
this spoke through me, to me, around me about everything that is involved in the kitchen of making art, whether it's comedy, drama, painting, sculpture, whatever. This is the microcosm of all the dimensionality of what's involved in the creation of quote-unquote art. And it spoke to me. And again, I'm partial to the whole carnivalesque and what is real, what is not real element of it. It just speaks to me. And I just couldn't get enough of this. But I didn't reach that point until probably midway through. The first half, I really was scratching my head and like, am I really going to get into this? I like parts of this, but it's a little disjointed. And again, that severing, and then it all came together because in the end, he took all those broken pieces and made a masterpiece. And that's sometimes what it takes to make a masterpiece, and that's why there's so few masterpieces in the history of the human race. So I know I'm probably not the norm or the populace, but A+ for me. I'll watch it 3 times more.
I'll give it a B-. But that could improve.
It's a B-. That's being generous.
What was the one, if you could pinpoint, like you pinpointed with one of the other movies, that there was too disjointed and the Big Mouth. Right. And there was too disjointed, and it was like this taped together collage of Jerry's career.
Right.
What would be the one thing that the mistake that could have made it a better, the mistake that was made that if not made could have made this a better movie for you?
2 things. I think I personally needed there to be more Jerry Lewis in this movie.
The lack of Jerry.
Okay, because I'm a fan. And
Didn't even think about that. I got caught beyond that. Like I went beyond Jerry.
I thought he was even wasted more in this than he was in Arizona.
definitely.
Oh, I thought
He
you
was
meant
much more
wasted like he was on
present,
Oxycontin or something.
No.
Oh, okay.
When they were touching on the father-son thing, I was very excited about that being an aspect of this film. I think this film was trying to accomplish too much. I think it was trying to accomplish the father-son thing. What truly is comedy? When is pain funny and not? What are we talking about here? And
The whole that magic dust that made those two performers. Now they're going to live forever doing this act. What do you think about that? I didn't even get to that point.
that was the point.
Will there come a time in the future when they live forever that isn't going to be funny anymore?
Yeah, I just
Think about that.
That was actually one of the points of the movie where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this. This is the third time I'm getting through this movie. And
See, it made me think. This movie really made me almost create my own offshoot movie.
Time is precious. So that's why when I rate these films and I go through them, I stress what movies people I think should see from certain artists before the films we're discussing.
In all the movies, there was so much Jerry, and then there was a little bit less of Jerry. I think it was a good selection of movies because this was the least Jerry visible.
Yeah.
But I think
It's
currently
about
there was
him,
a ton of Jerry, but without him physically being there, which is open to a whole nother conversation. Was that intentional or not? Who knows?
I like the fact that I thought it would be hard as hell to do this. And
Well,
it
was
ended
overreaching. I'm sure
it
it was
actually
ambitious.
ended up being easy and interesting.
The only thing I need to say too is like obviously we went through the films I should see, like The Bellboy and Nutty Professor. You didn't even go to The Day the Clown Died.
I was just going to say, is that even available?
No, it's
did you
not
watch it?
available. He's got that locked in a vault.
Yeah.
No,
You
no,
will
but
never
there's
see that.
supposedly there is. Didn't I give you the article?
There's like a bootleg
There is a
copy or
bootleg
something
out
out
there, and
Hmm.
that's a podcast in by itself.
That's
probably just
like
one
that one.
movie. If anybody can find it,
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought up the Day the Clown Died because I came up with a tiny list of a couple others.
I thought you said you just found it.
No,
There it is.
it's under this chair here.
Funny you should mention that. We're gonna watch that right now.
I want to go all the way back to 1956 with Hollywood or Bust. Because while you're watching that movie, that was the last. That was the last one him and Dean did together.
Didn't see that.
And while you're watching that movie, you can see the tension between them.
Yeah.
You can see how Dean is like, I gotta get the hell out of this. I'm just not liking it anymore.
Right.
And it's kind of like sad to watch, you know. But it's a comedy, but it's like wow, you can see it.
Hollywood or Bust? That was called.
Yeah, 1956. And then, of course, The Nutty Professor from 63. And then Which Way to the Front, which came out in 1970.
Yeah, I have that.
That really hits a lot of the war and politics. And then Cracking Up, which is a lot of suicide and depression.
Well, it's definitely a zany comedy, and I just had an experience watching it with Peter. I was
Which
telling
one's
you,
that?
It's a mad.
Oh, love
And
that.
while that is certainly a zany comedy and everything else, there's a lot of poignancy in that movie that I totally did not get as a kid. And when Spencer Tracy's going through the whole thing of realizing he's not going to get his pension and everything else, and what a miserable life he has. He thought he had everything, and he really didn't.
Classic movie.
I was really bowled over by that, and at the same time I'm sitting there watching that, my 9-year-old son's laughing, and when he saw the Jerry Lewis cameo, he got excited because he knew who he was, and we mentioned before, he knew who Buster Keaton was,
And with all the cameos, they're all at their best. I mean, Ethel Merman, that
Yes.
was Mom. That was the mother. Mom, come for your mom. And the phone booth. I mean, like every scenario stuck in the car, in the phone booth. Every chase scene. I mean, it's all in there.
So I would
that is the greatest.
I would
hits.
tag it on there. It's like, because you don't think of it as a Jerry Lewis movie.
In honor of the release of The Dark Knight Rises in theaters now, we revisit Episode 4, The Avengers. Corey Octis, Randy Petrus, and myself talk a little bit about Batman, and we make predictions on what is next for The Avengers, with some leftover discussion pulled from the Avengers podcast for your enjoyment. Where we finally reached The Avengers, it's already made $1 gazillion, and the critics all love it, and they're talking Dark Knight stuff and possible Academy Awards and everything else.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not hear this.
Didn't hear that part.
I hope so.
Well, they might get a nod like the Dark Knight did. It depends. It depends on what the Academy decides to do. Because the year the Dark Knight came out, they decided, 10 movies. They gave it to 10 movies.
Yeah.
They nominated 10 movies that year, so they gave the Dark Knight one. So you never know. It depends on what happens. But the cat's already out of the bag all over the internet about the scene that happens at the very end during the credits.
They teased Thanos in Thor a little bit because as they're walking through Odin's vault of treasure, the Infinity Gauntlet is there. So if you go back and watch any of the scenes where they're walking around, the Infinity Gauntlet, it's a powerful weapon, whatever, that comes up in Marvel Comics. And Thanos, that's something he's after.
Yeah.
So
Thanos,
it doesn't surprise me. They're talking Black
Widow.
Widow. They're talking another sequel for Iron Man.
The thing I don't understand is why has the Mandarin been pushed aside for 2 movies now? I've been reading stuff about the 3rd movie, and I'm still not 100% sure if the Mandarin's going to be in it or not. So.
I don't know. I hope he is. That's all I can say.
He's pretty much Iron Man's #1 foe from the comics.
But he's kind of
looking.
Yeah, he's sort of a magical bad guy because he's got these magic rings. So how they bring in the magic rings makes a little more sense now that they've introduced Thor and they've shown Iron Man in Thor's world. Iron Man can now fight magic stuff, and it's not like out of left field. So I think they can do it now, but I have no idea what the plot is for number 3. So.
Yeah, you call it magic, we call it science.
Well, they effectively introduced the Mandarin in the first one because the group is called the 10 Rings, or whatever is the name of the warlords. They don't mention the name of the main bad guy in that one, from the caves. I don't think they ever say his name, but he's spinning a ring on his finger. I mean, he's clearly meant to be the Mandarin.
Oh, wow.
So,
he was cool.
I actually didn't realize that until I was watching it in this last rewatching of it, and I paid a lot of attention to it. It's like, yeah, that guy's meant to be the Mandarin. So I hope they bring him back. I was pleased and amazed at how much time Black Widow had. That was the character that I think got built up the most in this.
Well, I was reading they're already working on a Black Widow film and possibly a Hawkeye and Black Widow film.
Sent me that article, and I really hope it happens, and I actually really hope it happens the way you just said, where it's Hawkeye and Black Widow. I think she could carry a movie on her own. It would be a spy-type movie. Yeah. It would be, in the vein of the Bourne Identity type movies.
She would have long curly hair.
Yeah,
and she would have long curly hair.
Give her back her long curly hair.
Really tight outfit.
Didn't like the short hair. Did not like the short hair.
I didn't notice she had hair.
It wasn't as good as the long curly hair, but it was alright.
Chris, Jennifer, Russ, thank you very much. So next month, Bond turns 50 this year. Plus the new Daniel Craig Bond film comes out later this year. And to honor those scenarios, the Dying Breed Movie Club and myself will talk about the early Connery years. It's going to be fun. Thanks, guys. This was great.
Thank you, Phil.
See you all on the movie aisles.
Flavin.
Creative consultant, Chris Mitch. Technical director, Rich Shoemaker. Special thanks to Andrea Gastongui, Thomas Hines, and me, Paula Burke. The Dying Breed Movie Club Meets the Movies is produced by Deep Lake Pictures Entertainment and has no connection to any of the movies, artists, or motion picture companies seen or discussed in the Dying Breed Movie Club Meets the Movies whatsoever. Copyrights for films, images, sound bites, trademark characters, and related materials discussed in the Dying Breed Movie Club Meets the Movies remain with their respective owners. All materials are solely used for criticism, discussion, and artistic interpretation based on the fair use laws of the United States.